Hey, welcome back to Business 101, Introduction to Business, and we are continuing on in our exploration of operations in Module 7 of this class. In this particular lecture, we're looking at the distinction between goods and services, especially, of course, when it comes to differences in production and operations. In producing and bringing to market goods and services, there are some significant differences for us to consider moving forward, and that's what we get into now. So some differences between service operations and goods operations. The text will make the initial suggestion that production of services can be more complicated than the production of simple goods due to at least four things, probably more. This list is not comprehensive, but first of all, services can involve direct interaction with customers. Production of services can also include the intangible and unstorable nature of some of these services. The customer's presence in the very process of delivering services can also add a layer of complications, as well as service quality considerations. Let's consider these one at a time. How does interacting with customers in the delivery of services make things a whole lot different than delivering goods? Well, consider for a moment the delivery of a service like getting a haircut. Getting a haircut is completely different than simply shipping a box of finished goods from Amazon.com or something like that, right? The very nature of the service dictates that the way that you directly interact with the buyer, with the consumer, with the user, is a part and parcel with the actual delivery of service. It's impossible to deliver a haircut through UPS. The customer has to be there and is intimately involved in the process of delivery of the service. That makes things way more complicated than simply shipping stuff from an Amazon warehouse. The second point, of course, is, as you notice back on the slide, the intangible and unstorable nature of some services. You cannot store a massage. You cannot put it in the freezer to be used at another time. The massage is delivered at a particular point in time. Of course, it does involve the previous bullet point, interacting with customers as well, but the very nature of the fact that it's delivered at a point in time and is not inventoriable, it is not storable. The same thing, for instance, with dental work. You can't store it in a cupboard, on a shelf, in a warehouse, and bring it out later, and that makes it way more complicated. Services like those, of course, cannot be delivered unless the service provider is present, able to be scheduled, is working that day, and has service capacity. The third bullet point, the customer's presence in the process. This makes things way more complicated, doesn't it? The fact that the person getting the haircut is sitting in the chair, which means that if you make one mistake and accidentally nick their ear with the scissors, there's going to be blood all over the place. And of course, probably your Yelp rating is going to go down as well. But obviously, the customer being directly involved in the process of the delivery of services makes things a whole lot more complicated. And it couldn't be a better example than online education, right? The fact that you as students are not actually physically present in a classroom, and yet I need to deliver comparable content and review of topics in a way that you can digest at your leisure wherever you're at, makes life a lot more complicated. This too is the delivery of a service which, due to the fact not that the customer is present, but that the customer is not physically present, complicates the delivery of the service through asynchronous means like these video lectures. Finally, the fourth point, service quality considerations. Realize, of course, that the quality of the service can vary greatly from delivery to delivery. Have you ever been in a restaurant, a busy restaurant perhaps, and the last time you were at that restaurant, the server delivered a level of service which was exemplary. It was just wonderful. Your server was funny, was on the spot, had great menu recommendations, was attentive but not intrusive, just delivered an excellent, excellent service experience to you. But then the next time you go, perhaps you go on a busy weekend, you get a different server, you're seated at a different table, the food's not quite as good, and the server's like completely absent. You got to wave them down, flag them, and you're asking yourself, why did we come here? This is an entirely different experience. And of course, quite possibly, your Yelp review reflects that. What is a restaurant owner to make of that, right? Because service quality considerations can vary greatly for a whole set of different reasons, possible reasons, right? And that affects the level of quality delivered in a way that, quite frankly, many producers of goods don't have to worry about, right? Or at least quality considerations take an entirely different form when you're talking about the production of goods rather than the delivery of services. For those four and several other reasons, of course, right, many other reasons, the productions of services can be a lot more complicated and nuanced than the production of goods. Now, when we are talking about the delivery, the production of physical goods, right, then we have at least two distinctions to make here. And you can see here that producing goods can be made to stock operations, which of course accounts for the great volume of mass-produced goods. You see it defined there. Activities for producing standardized products for mass consumption, which is distinguished from made-to-order operations, activities for one-of-a-kind or custom-made production. So that's the big distinction the text will make with regards to operations producing physical goods. Let me see if I can give you an example of this, right? So one of the obvious, most ubiquitous, present made-to-stock operations is buying socks online. Socks generally come in one size, or at least a great number of them do. There are a few that come in different sizes, but the majority of men's socks, whether they're athletic socks or dress socks, they all come in one size. Therefore, the factory only has to deliver one size of socks, and they just mass produce them and ship them out to distribution to all the different places you might buy socks, whether it's at a Target store or online through Amazon or a fine dress shoe store. But nevertheless, the producer, the maker, the manufacturer of those socks is just making the same thing and delivering mass quantities out through distribution. That probably makes sense, and quite frankly, for all sorts of different products, that's the way that things are made to stock, a standardized product, whether we're talking about socks or whether we're talking about drinking glasses, right? This particular size of glass, they simply mass produce them, ship them out to distribution, which is entirely different than, for instance, making a men's suit to custom order, what sometimes is called a bespoke suit, made specifically to one person's measurements. And that process, of course, you go in, you're measured several times perhaps before the tailor ever starts to draw up your actual suit. Then certain parts are made, and then you come in for a secondary fitting to make sure that it fits according to you like, and then the suit is finished. It only fits one person. It only fits you. And of course you pay a premium for that, but as you return to this slide, you can see it's really a different class, a different type of operations when you are making made to order versus made to stock. That's the primary consideration when we talk about physical goods, at least in this chapter. But returning then to the whole topic of service operations, the text will make one level of distinction here, which is low contact service systems versus high contact service systems. What is an example of a low contact system? It's described as a system where the level of customer contact in which the customer needs to be part of the system to receive the service is very, very low. The customer need not really be there for the system to work and to produce the service. And of course, there's a picture right here. What's that? That's the U.S. Postal Service. Well, quite frankly, the delivery of the mail doesn't really require an enormous amount of customer contact in the system, right? You just go to your mailbox every day and voila, magic, your mail seems to appear. How does that work? Well, there is enormous human and mechanical process of sorting and distribution and routing, all of which happens completely apart from the customer being there, right? You see a mail sorting service warehouse pictured in this particular photograph here, where you have employees sorting through the mail by zip codes and delivery addresses, right? And there's no need or want for the customer to be there during that sort process. All you have to do is make sure you occasionally go out to your mailbox and your mail is delivered. This is different than, for instance, a service production process with high level of customer contact. And so you see the definition there, a level of customer contact in which the customer is part of the system during service delivery. And you see here a photograph of an example of our BART train system, right? You look at that. And actually, you know, you think about it, those of us who have ridden BART, that's actually a marvelous photograph, because most of the BART stations I go to, the floors aren't so clean that they're just shining and reflecting the light off, are they? But nevertheless, rather than this being a commentary on the cleanliness of BART stations, you understand that BART service, transportation service, requires you to be part, oh, well, that's the definition of a transportation service, right? It is moving and taking customers, riders, from one place to another. And that's an example of a service process with high contact with customers. And that's the primary distinction that's made in this chapter. So, where does that leave us? Well, as we think about the production of services versus the production of goods, right, we realize that for several different reasons, as we've sketched out here in this lecture, the production and delivery of services to customers can be particularly more complicated and have more challenges and nuances than the production of goods, especially mass-produced goods. Now, the production of made-to-order goods or customized goods can require a higher level of customer contact, sometimes, but not always. But essentially, when we talk about the delivery of services, we do make the distinction between low-contact service delivery versus high-contact service delivery. This then provides several different ways for us to think about and categorize the delivery and production of goods versus the production of services. All of this should be helpful as we continue to think of how does business work, especially when we talk about the actual delivery of products and services to customers in the marketplace, production and operations. I hope that's helpful. We'll see you in the next lecture.